It is August 1908, Cheyenne, Wyoming, opening day of the Olympic Games of Rodeos, Frontier Days. Tens of thousands of people in attendance. The boisterous crowd falls silent as a brown-skinned cowboy rides into the arena. Palpable waves of toxic white masculinity just shimmering in the air. He's there for the steer roping competition, and the stands are packed with local pride because since the beginning of Frontier Days, the grand prize for steer roping champion of the world has always gone home with a Wyoming boy. And the man entering the arena now is not one of Wyoming's own. Neither Jack Lowe nor the other two humble, taciturn cowboys he's come with, his cousins Archie Ka'awa and Ikua Purdy, are even from the Wild West at all. They're not there for macho bragging rights. They're not piss and pistol cowboys. As Ikua once said, only show-off cowboys carry guns. Their gear is different. Their hats are different. Worse, they've ringed their hats with wildflowers, and much worse, their skin is different. They aren't just not from Wyoming. They've traveled 4,000 miles to be there. They are Paniolo, Hawaiian cowboys. Now, it has been exactly 10 years and 8 days since the flag of the Paniolo's peaceful sovereign nation of Hawaii was lowered over the royal palace and illegally replaced with the stars and stripes, the result of an unauthorized American business-led coup and illegal military occupation of a very sovereign nation which the sitting US president declared an illegal act of war. Technically speaking, Hawaii is still under illegal military occupation to this day. Look it up. Which is the backdrop as 10 years later, Ikua, Archie, and Jack are on the mainland for the first time. They've been recruited for an all-expenses-paid trip to show the world what Paniolo can do. And to Hawaiians, they are facing the uncertain land of their occupiers, carrying the weighted burden of a sovereign nation under siege. To mainlanders, they are misguided interlopers, foreigners trespassing on a quintessentially American tradition. Paniolo Jack Lowe, the first of the three to compete, rides into the ring. And it begins. The steer is released and Jack brings it down. Now, in steer roping, the rider must also dismount and tie the steer, so the horse is essential because if the rope goes slack, the steer escapes. Now, this horse, which was belatedly given to Jack mere days before, does just that. Jack throws the steer down again and again and again, kicking up so much dust that the poor man has an asthma attack. By the time he ties, it has been a long 2.5 minutes, and mainlanders are smug. Rodeo day 2, when it's Paniolo or Archie Ka'awa's turn. They take off. Steer is down, then back up, making a run for the fence. As the steer leaps into the air to jump the fence, Archie throws, catches it by the heels mid-air, then reins his horse in so tightly it rears, snapping the rope tight. The steer literally somersaults in the air, comes down on top of the fence. Archie ties it, and his time is 1 minute and 9 seconds, the fastest yet. The audience erupts into applause. What had just happened? I mean, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe, as one mainland newspaper literally later claimed, a Paniolo could only win if the steer had, quote, let him win. Yeah. So the real test was coming up with Ikua Purdy, the most renowned of the three. His ride would determine which was the fluke, the poor showing or the astounding one. And we're off. But Ikua's loner horse won't respond instantly to the reins, so he throws a huge loop to the side, the steer runs through it, and Ikua cinches it around the animal's midsection. And the audience gasps. Western cowboys rope steer by the horns, Paniolo by the feet, but catching it by the midsection and cinching it there, it isn't done. It won't work. There's no leverage to get the animal down on the ground. Someone in the press box pronounces, quote, that settles him. He'll never bust that steer in 1,000 years. And the audience knew then, cattle roping should really be left to the pros. Oh yes. Oh yes, it should. See, what almost no one there knew was that Paniolo had been roping cattle for generations before they ever did in the Wild West. And Hawaiian cow roping is a whole different ballgame, one that makes Western riding look, well, kind of cute in comparison. Cattle may not be what you think of first when you think of the world's largest, the world's most isolated, largest in isolation sense of the term, landmass on the planet. But like sugar and pineapples, it's a product of imperialism. They were gifted to King Kamehameha from a British explorer, but then they kept breeding. And by the early 1800s, wild longhorn cattle had overrun every island where they'd been introduced. They were literally a menace. By the 1830s, like literally, y'all, there's a part here that I took out. It's a menace. We can talk about it later. By the 1830s, the situation was untenable. Enter the world's first cowboys, vaqueros from Spanish Mexico, who had been roping cattle since the 1600s. Decades before the American Wild West began, a Hawaiian royal decree went out asking for the vaqueros' help. About a dozen arrived, and Paniolo were born. Now, I'd like you all to pause for a second and think about why cattle roping in Hawaii would be way more hardcore than it is in the Wild West. And the answer is pretty simple. Geography, folks, what type of landmass is Hawaii? Volcanic, and it's made out of, it's an island made of volcanoes. Yes, I'm hearing it all. Okay, so volcanoes. Jack Lowe, our asthmatic Paniolo, wasn't used to breathing a lot of dust because what he was used to was riding down the side of a volcano over uneven razor-sharp rocks, navigating life-ending lava tubes, a different skill level where you cannot afford to fall. And not just that, but doing so to chase down and control wild 1,000-pound horned beasts. You've got 13,000-foot elevation changes literally every climate in one day, and my favorite part, the island bit. Now, when Paniolo move cattle from one place to another, they don't just herd them into some cute little pen. Oh no, they take these angry beasts and go swimming. And what lives in the ocean and is attracted to thrashing in the water? Yeah, I'm not saying it happens often. What I am saying is that Paniolo have literally lassoed sharks. This is a thing that has occurred. In other words, for however hardy a Western cowboy thought he was, Paniolo were rugged, resilient, world-class athletes, occasionally with sharks. Basically, like they're metal AF, and really soft-spoken and humble about it. And these white boys had no idea what was about to hit them. Because back in the arena, Ikua Purdy had just pulled a move he'd used many times on the slope of Mauna Kea. With the rope cinched around the midsection, Ikua darted his horse around the steer, dallied, and boom, the steer hit the ground. Ikua tied it, that exact moment seen here, and jumped up, hands in the air. His time, 1 minute, 3 seconds. Frontier Park erupted. A paper the next morning wrote, quote, 2 brown Kanakas from Hawaii invaded the heart of the American cow country and taught the white ropers a lesson in how to handle steers. The next day was the finals, a chance to beat the Hawaiians, which was never gonna happen. Ikua was born for this. He learned to ride before he could walk and started roping when he was 10. His great-grandfather was the first person to hunt cattle for King Kamehameha and founded the largest cattle ranch in Hawaii. His great-grandmother, the royal granddaughter of King Kamehameha himself. In other words, the man was literally both Paniolo royalty and like actual royalty. In his second ride, he finished in an astonishing 56 seconds. No one else came close. He was the steer roping champion of the world. Archie came in 3rd, and Jack, despite the asthma, made it to 6th. By the time of the award ceremony, something had changed. The Hawaiians were both figuratively and literally embraced. And they were immediately challenged for more rides with prize money, but they politely declined and returned home heroes. In addition to Ikua's cash prize, he'd won a brand new saddle, which he promptly put under the porch, and as far as anyone can tell, never actually used. Paniolo saddles are way better at withstanding the ocean swell anyway. The 3 never returned to the mainland. Setting the world record for steer roping didn't ever seem to get to Ikua's head. He remained a Paniolo till the end of his days, and whenever it had come up, he'd smile fondly at the memories of Vailomina, then quickly change the topic. Surely there were other better things to talk about. And he had a large family, his ohana, seen here at the unveiling of his statue. He loved seeing them ride. And in 2018, one of his grandsons made a lei to hang in Cheyenne's Hall of Fame. And when it began disintegrating, the museum honored it with a burial in the arena near where Ikua had secured the championship. Today, Paniolo culture is still a major part of Hawaiian culture. While horses have largely been replaced with ATVs, ranching is still how many families in parts of Hawaii make a living. And true Paniolo do still exist. And it is the culture of where I live in upcountry Maui, down the road from the cattle ranch where Ikua spent the rest of his days. And it's no wonder that I feel at home there. I grew up in Western culture. I grew up riding. My family's from Montana. Yeah, that's my mom, and that was definitely our holiday card that year. But while they're riding and the rodeos and the line dancing where I live now are familiar from home, Paniolo culture really defies every trope I was raised with. I mean, it defies, yes, the cowboy and Indians trope, but also the lonesome cowboy and the braggadocious cowboy, the gun culture, the Western pride tropes. Yes, Paniolo would never have had to exist without colonialism, imperialism, and exploitation. Yes, and. Paniolo culture was created by Hawaiians remaining Hawaiian, with European, Latinx, and Asian influences grounded in Hawaiian roots. Roots of Lokahi, Ohana, Pono, Kokua, Kuleana, Laulima, Ho'omau, Ho'ohana, Ha'aha'a. The roots that would make Ikua, Archie, and Jack, like so many others, both incredibly skilled at rodeo and give incredibly few shits about the accolades and showiness of it. So tonight, I would like to make a toast to them, to the Waimea boys, Ikua, Archie, and Jack. As the classic Hawaiian song Waiomina, written about their 1908 win says, translated, quote, "Let the story be known in the telling, the lively ropers, Ikua is the world champion, from Waimea comes such spirit." Cheers.